The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Glen Goodman, crypto consultant at the Crypto Exchange eToro. Welcome, Glen. So today, for a change, the market doesn't look that terrible. Bitcoin is up. Why do you think that is?
As far as I can tell, it's just a pure reaction to the absolute disaster that we've seen across markets and across the world economy over recent days. So it's kind of one of those things that's sometimes referred to as the newspaper indicator or the magazine indicator, where whenever you see the global news headlines, like the main news headlines on, say, the top of the BBC News, saying, you know, dollar soaring, pound plummeting, things like that, that's usually a sign that there's about to be a turnaround, right? Once the kind of the normal people get hold of what is essentially a finance story, then quite often you see the opposite thing happen. But that's not to say that this means that everything's going to be hunky-dory from now on, that everything's going to be lovely and the economies will return to normal. Not at all. It just means that generally when you get those big headlines, you tend to get a bounce because people start taking their profits. A lot of traders see it as time. You know, for example, there are lots of big hedge funds that have gone short the pound, long the dollar, and many of them will be taking their profits at this point, which is what causes things to turn around. Now, you can see on that chart there, I wanted to highlight that because it's interesting. You know, a lot of the publicity that we've seen over recent days has been about a loss of confidence in the pound. The pound is in trouble. But the chart that you can see there is those three different main currencies against the dollar. And actually, if you look at it over the course of a year, which is the chart that I've set up for you there, you get a situation where actually the pound hasn't fallen that much more than the other major currency, the euro, for example, and the yen has actually done even worse. I think the yen is actually a bit of a dangerous situation that's kind of bubbling underneath, and people haven't really quite taken in yet the seriousness of the trouble that the Japanese economy and the yen are in. I suppose to sum it all up, what I'd say is, very few times in my trading lifetime, and I've been trading more than 20 years, very few times have I seen a more dangerous economic and market situation than the one that we're currently in. And I am desperately hoping that the Federal Reserve will recognize what I and a lot of other people are seeing, all these various ways that things could get really bad really quickly, and I'm hoping they will pause interest rate rises as a result, because that would help a lot.
Quick question for you on this chart. So it's interesting you put the euro, pound, and yen, and you can see the comparisons there. So, but we're seeing coordinated central bank raising of interest rates around the world, including the Federal Reserve. So why are we seeing a strengthening dollar there versus these other currencies which are faltering?
Well, this is effectively a currency war between, I mean, not a war in the sense that they're all out to get each other, but it's kind of become a competitive devaluation race. So because the US is raising its interest rates, what that means is that all the other currencies in the world have to try and raise their interest rates to keep their currencies up a bit more in line with the dollar. And there are lots of reasons for that, but one of the main ones is dollar-denominated debt. Now, people have been moaning for years in the corners of Zero Hedge and websites like that, where they complain about the enormous amount, unprecedented amount of global debt that has been built up both by private companies and by governments. And we've all sort of paid lip service to that, but also gone a bit like, well, nothing seems to be going too wrong as a result. We're all just increasing debt and it seems to be okay. Well, now is one of those times where maybe it won't be okay. And so what's happening is, because so many countries have huge amounts of debt that are denominated in dollars, that means as the dollar rises, those debts get more and more expensive for all those countries to service. And the only way that they can counter that is by raising the value of their own currencies, which means they have to raise interest rates too. But as you quite rightly said, the dollar is nonetheless still soaring, even though everybody's raising their interest rates. And that is because everybody needs those dollars right now. The whole world is screaming out for a limited amount of dollars. The Fed isn't printing them anymore, remember? So there are fewer than there were before, relatively speaking, and everybody wants them. It's driving the price of the dollar up and up and up.
So, Glenn, I think you just made a very good explanation for why a strong dollar could be detrimental to other countries in the world. But from an American perspective, I think some Americans are like, oh, cool, I can go to Europe and like buy a lot of cheap stuff now, right? So could you explain like why a strong dollar could be problematic for Americans as well?
Well, it's problematic for Americans mainly because it's problematic for the world. You know, America is part of the global economy, obviously, and in fact the main part of the global economy. And it depends to some extent not just on its domestic market, but also on international markets. It needs the global economy to keep doing well. And I suppose what kind of annoys me from a non-American's perspective is that the Federal Reserve is setting interest rates only caring about America. It cares about American inflation. It cares about American unemployment. Nothing else matters. But because the dollar is the global reserve currency, whatever the Fed does with interest rates affects the whole world. And, in my opinion, is leading to a significant global deflation and possibly a global deflationary bust. And that's why I'm hoping that Jerome Powell notices all of this in time to actually do something about it. I'm not thinking he's going to actually reduce interest rates. You know, he's made it pretty clear that ain't going to happen. But he could at least pause the raises in interest rates. And what that would do is just give every other country a bit of a breather, give them a bit of a chance to stop raising their own interest rates and deflating their own economies. It would give us here in Britain a bit of a rest as well. That would be nice.
Yeah, that's a good explanation as well. So one other question, just to sort of wrap this up, is what does a strong dollar mean for crypto specifically, or does it mean anything? I mean, is this something that is important for the crypto market?
Well, put it this way. At the moment, we've got a situation where as much money in the world as possible is going into dollars, and that means everything else is starved of money. As you'll probably have noticed, there are no safe havens now. I mean, even US Treasury bonds have been plummeting and plummeting, which in itself is a major danger to both the US economy and the world economy. I'll mention that very quickly, actually, because you did ask about what all of this means for the US economy just before. And actually, the plummeting Treasury price and inversely the rising yield means that mortgages are getting, as you probably know, really expensive now for Americans, and there's a real danger of crashing the US property market. But anyway, on to your question about crypto markets. What we need basically is for this, as I say, for the Federal Reserve to pause interest rates so that the dollar can hopefully gently decline again. And then what that will mean is that markets can start recovering. Because at the moment, the markets are looking for any reason to rise. As you said, the Bitcoin price has risen even though there isn't any good news, right? So imagine what a bit of good news like pausing interest rates would mean to traders in the stock market and in the crypto market. Because stocks and crypto are so tightly correlated these days, it would be fantastic if a pause in interest rates could just cheer everybody up and we could see a bit of a rise and an end to this kind of gloom and doom which has been just endless. And actually the commodity markets are worth quickly mentioning because those commodity markets have actually been falling and falling and falling in recent times. Loads of major commodities falling in price against the dollar, which actually means that hopefully inflation in the US will naturally come down soon anyway, because things like copper, wheat, important commodities are coming way down in price in terms of dollars. So if inflation even shows the slightest sign of coming down, I'm hoping Powell will pause interest rates. I just really hope he's listening to this, watching this broadcast right now and just hears me going on and on about please pause interest rates.